In the heart of a bustling family reunion, laughter mingled with the scent of freshly baked scones. The English countryside home, with its charming stone walls and blooming gardens, seemed to radiate warmth. Yet, for Elizabeth, the eldest daughter, excitement danced precariously with anxiety. She stood at the threshold, watching as relatives embraced, their smiles bright but their eyes holding untold stories. Beneath the surface, tension simmered, like a pot about to boil over. Old wounds, festering and unacknowledged, lurked in the shadows of the festive atmosphere. Determined to make the most of the day, Elizabeth took a deep breath. She longed for connection, for the laughter to drown out the whispers of doubt. But as she stepped inside, she caught sight of her estranged Aunt Mary. The air thickened. Memories surged, faded photographs, whispered arguments, and a bond that had splintered years ago. Elizabeth's heart raced, a mixture of dread and unresolved longing. Was today the day to confront the past? Mary stood alone, her eyes scanning the room, a hint of vulnerability breaking through her stern facade. Elizabeth's resolve wavered. Should she approach? The years had carved lines on Mary's face, and yet the familiarity was undeniable. They had once been close, sharing secrets and dreams under the sprawling oak tree in the garden. But that was before the rift tore them apart, long before distance became a chasm too wide to cross. "Elizabeth," Mary's voice broke through the noise, soft yet firm. "It's been a while." "Yes, it has," Elizabeth replied, forcing a smile. The words felt hollow, like a fragile glass ornament. "How have you been?" "Surviving, like everyone else, I suppose." There was an edge to Mary's voice, a hint of bitterness. Elizabeth felt the weight of unspoken grievances hanging between them, heavy like the storm clouds that sometimes rolled over the countryside. As relatives gathered around, the cheerful chatter swirled like a whirlwind, but Elizabeth felt isolated, trapped in a moment that refused to shift. She could hear her mother, Jennifer, in the kitchen, her laughter mingling with the clatter of dishes. It was a sound she cherished, yet today it felt distant, like a melody played on a broken piano. Throughout the day, Elizabeth tried to focus on the joy around her. Michael, her younger brother, was cracking jokes, while Sarah, the emotional heart of the family, flitted from group to group, her laughter infectious. Yet, the reunion felt like a veneer over a deeper truth, a thin layer covering cracks that threatened to splinter the whole gathering. When the family photo album was brought out, memories rushed back, vibrant and bittersweet. Laughter erupted as they flipped through the pages, but as Elizabeth leaned in to look, her heart dropped. A letter slipped out, yellowed and frayed. She picked it up, her fingers trembling. "What's that, Liz?" Michael asked, his eyes curious. "I don't know," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The room grew quiet as she unfolded the letter. The words inside struck her like a lightning bolt: betrayal, hidden truths, a family secret that had thrived in silence, her parents' affair, a shocking revelation that left her breathless. The laughter around her faded into a muffled echo. How could this be? She felt the walls closing in, the weight of her family's history pressing down like an anchor. Whispers of discontent began to ripple through the gathering, the atmosphere shifting from festive to fraught with tension. "Liz, are you all right?" Sarah's voice broke through her fog of disbelief. I need some air," Elizabeth stammered, scrambling to regain her composure. She stepped outside, the cool breeze brushing against her skin, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within her. As she wandered through the garden, memories of childhood flooded back: the laughter, the games, the love that was so palpable. But now, it felt tainted, overshadowed by the revelation of betrayal. Michael found her, his face a mask of concern. "What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I found something," she replied, her voice shaky. "Something about Mum and Dad." His brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Before she could answer, Sarah joined them, her face flushed. "I heard voices raised. What's going on?" "I found a letter," Elizabeth said, her heart racing. "It's about Mum and Dad's past. There was an affair. It's true." The silence that followed was palpable, heavy as lead. Their family dynamic, once so solid, felt fragile now, like a house of cards. Michael's jaw clenched, and Sarah's eyes widened in shock. "Why didn't they ever tell us?" Michael finally said, his voice low. "Do they think we're not strong enough to handle the truth?" The question lingered in the air, a painful reminder of their parents' choices. a choice that felt like a betrayal of their trust. Elizabeth felt anger simmering beneath her skin, a fire igniting where there had once been warmth. As the sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the garden, Elizabeth realized they were all teetering on the edge of something much deeper than a family secret. The reunion was no longer just a gathering. It had become a battlefield of emotions, betrayal, hurt, and a desperate need for healing. But what they didn't know was that this was just the beginning. In the wake of revelation, a reckoning awaited. There would be confrontations, tears, and perhaps a chance for redemption. Yet, for now, all Elizabeth could do was stand in the garden, fighting the urge to scream, to cry, to let the world know that she felt utterly lost. The day would go on, but for her, everything had changed. She caught her breath, looking up at the sky as if seeking answers. Would they find the strength to pull through? Would they heal from this? Or would the weight of their family's past crush them underfoot? As uncertainty loomed, one thing was clear. They had to confront the truth. And Elizabeth was determined to uncover what lay buried beneath the surface, no matter the cost. I remember a time when our home was filled with laughter. The aroma of my famous apple pie wafted through the air, wrapping around us like a warm blanket. Sunday afternoons we gathered around the table, sharing stories and dreams. My husband Michael would tease our children John and Sarah as they playfully argued about who got the last piece of pie. Those moments felt eternal, vibrant, and pure. Back then, I didn't know that shadows were creeping into our lives. It was a golden era, sprinkled with love and unity. We had our rituals, our family traditions that anchored us. Every Christmas, we'd hang our stockings by the fireplace. I'd watch the children's eyes light up as they opened their gifts. Laughter echoed, a melody of joy. It's hard to believe that I once thought this happiness would never fade. But soon, cracks began to show. John became distant, often wrapped up in his phone, lost in a world of his own. Sarah, my sweet girl, started to wear a mask of indifference, her laughter replaced by silence. I noticed the subtle changes at first, like leaves changing color in autumn. It was gradual, and then suddenly, it wasn't. I remember the first time I felt that something was wrong. We were at a family gathering, and John made a careless comment about my cooking. It cut deeper than he realized. I smiled, trying to brush it off, but the laughter felt hollow. I could see the flicker of embarrassment in his eyes, a moment's regret. Yet, it was gone as quickly as it appeared. In the weeks that followed, I noticed more than just their indifference. I began to feel an ache in my chest, a tightening grip of worry. I tried to engage them. "How was school, John?" I'd ask, only to receive a distracted grunt in response. Sarah barely looked up from her phone, lost in a digital world while I stood there, a stranger in my own home. I prayed for clarity, for guidance. "Lord, help me understand," I whispered into the stillness of the night. My faith, once a steadfast anchor, began to feel like a fragile thread. I clung to it, refusing to let go. I believed in redemption, in the healing power of love. But with every passing day, it felt like I was losing my family. Then, there was that night. I stood alone in the kitchen, the remnants of dinner still scattered across the table. I could hear the muffled sounds of laughter from the living room, but it felt distant, like waves crashing on a shore far away. I picked up a photograph of us from a family trip. We were all smiles, carefree. The ache in my heart deepened. "What happened to us?" I whispered to the empty room. I decided to confront it. I gathered the strength I had left and called a family meeting. "We need to talk," I said, my voice wavering but resolute. I watched their faces change, concern flickering in their eyes. But it was too late. The distance had grown too vast, and the silence that followed felt like a heavy weight. John shifted uncomfortably, and Sarah avoided my gaze. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my words. "I miss us," I confessed, tears threatening to spill. "I miss the joy, the laughter. We are losing each other." But as I looked into their eyes, I saw something shift. A flicker of recognition, perhaps. Yet, it wasn't enough. They nodded, but I could sense their resistance. "We're okay, Mum," John said, his voice lacking conviction. "It's just life." But I knew it was more than that. It was fear, confusion, the burdens they carried. They didn't see how far we were drifting apart. I wanted to reach for them, but I felt a chasm between us. Days turned into weeks, and the atmosphere in our home thickened with unspoken words. I prayed harder, seeking solace in Scripture and the support of my friends. I turned to my community for strength. I joined a women's group at church, sharing my struggles and finding comfort in others' stories. Their resilience inspired me. One Wednesday evening, as I sat with my friends, I spoke about my family. "It's like I'm watching them slip away, and I can't do anything to stop it," I said, my voice trembling. "I've tried everything, but they won't talk to me." "Hang in there, Mary," Elizabeth said, her eyes warm with understanding. "Sometimes it takes time for them to open up. You've planted the seeds. Just keep watering them with love." Her words resonated deeply. I realized that perhaps my approach needed to change. It wasn't just about confronting the issue, but nurturing the bonds that still remained. I needed to show them that I was still here, unwavering in my love and commitment. I began small, inviting them to cook together. I'd tell stories from my childhood, sharing laughter and memories we had once cherished. Slowly, I saw them soften. John would crack a smile while Sarah would occasionally join in, laughing at the silly anecdotes. But just as I thought we were making progress, I received a phone call that shattered my world. It was from the hospital. They found something concerning during my checkup. I felt the ground beneath me shift, panic rising in my chest. I was terrified, yet I couldn't show it. "Stay strong, Mary," I whispered to myself, gripping the countertop. I needed to be the anchor for my family. I couldn't let them see my fear. I would pull through for them, no matter what. That evening, I gathered the courage to share the news with John and Sarah. "I have something important to tell you," I started, their eyes locking onto mine with concern. But what they didn't know was that this news would change everything. The first hint that something was amiss came on an ordinary Tuesday. I was in the kitchen, the smell of fresh bread wafting through the air. Mary, my youngest, came down the stairs, and I could see it in her eyes a distance, a coldness I hadn't noticed before. I brushed it off, thinking perhaps she had a rough day at school. But deep down, a whisper nagged at me. Something was different. As the days turned into weeks, those whispers grew louder. The warmth that once filled our home began to fade, replaced by a chilling silence. I noticed the way my eldest, Jennifer, would roll her eyes when I asked about her plans. The laughter that echoed through the hallways turned to hushed conversations behind closed doors. "What's going on?" I'd ask, trying to bridge the gap, but they would just shrug it off with vague replies. "Nothing, Mum, just busy." It was during a family dinner, one of those rare occasions we managed to gather everyone around the table, that the tension finally bubbled over. I had made their favorite meal, hoping to rekindle those cherished moments. But as the food sat untouched, I felt the weight of their silence pressing down on me. "Is everything all right?" I ventured, trying to sound casual, but my heart raced. "Can't we just eat, Mum?" Mary snapped, her frustration exploding like a firecracker in the midst of my carefully crafted piece. I felt the sting of her words, sharp and unwelcome. "I'm just trying to connect with you all," I replied, my voice trembling with the effort to keep it steady. The room fell silent again, the clinking of forks the only sound cutting through the thick atmosphere. I glanced at Jennifer, who was staring at her plate, her brows furrowed. "You wouldn't understand," she said quietly, and those words struck me like a blow. "Try me," I urged, but she merely shook her head, a dismissive gesture that felt like a door slamming shut in my face. That night, as I lay awake, the shadows danced on the walls, mirroring my restless thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing them, losing my family. The next day, I scheduled a doctor's appointment. My body had been sending me signals, two subtle aches, fatigue that lingered like a cloud. I needed to take care of myself, not just for me, but for them. The doctor's office was bright and sterile, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. "It's probably nothing, just stress," the doctor reassured me after running a few tests. But deep down, I felt a gnawing fear. What if it was something more? As I walked home, I couldn't shake that feeling. It was as if I was walking through a fog, unable to see what lay ahead. Days passed, and the distance between us grew. I could sense something was brewing beneath the surface. Mary's friends began to visit more often, and I could see the whispers exchanged, glances that held secrets I wasn't privy to. I felt like a ghost in my own home, haunting the hallways where laughter once reigned. One afternoon, while tidying up, I stumbled upon an old family photo tucked away in a drawer. We were all smiles, arms around each other, faces lit with joy. I held it close, nostalgia flooding over me like a warm blanket. But that warmth quickly turned to ice when I noticed something else, a letter, yellowed with age, peeking out from under the photo. Curiosity piqued, I pulled it out. My hands trembled as I unfolded it, revealing my late husband's handwriting. It was a love letter, filled with words that made my heart swell. But at the bottom, a postscript caught my eye. If anything happens to me, trust the process. Those words haunted me. Why would he say that? What did he know? That evening, I gathered the girls for a talk. "We need to discuss what's happening in this family," I said, my voice firm but gentle. They exchanged glances, a silent communication that made my heart sink. I can feel the distance, and it's breaking my heart. "Maybe it's time you stop trying so hard," Jennifer replied, her tone sharp. "We're fine, Mum." But I knew we weren't. I pressed on, but their resistance was like a brick wall, solid, unyielding. As I left the room, I felt a wave of helplessness wash over me. I wanted to scream, to shake them, and make them see what I could see. But all I could do was retreat into my own mind, spiraling deeper into the fear that something was terribly wrong. But what they didn't know was that I was starting to find my strength. I began researching the letter, digging into family history. I had to uncover the truth, not just for me, but for them. I was determined to pull through, to fight for my family. And then, just as I was beginning to piece things together, I received a call that shattered my world. The doctor's office was on the line, and with their words, everything I thought I knew unraveled. "We need you to come in as soon as possible." But what they didn't realize was that the truth I was searching for was about to reveal itself in ways I never expected. Everything changed that night at the family reunion. The laughter echoed against the walls of Grandma's old house, but inside me, a storm was brewing. I sat at the long table, surrounded by my family, but I felt utterly alone. My daughter Sarah was chatting away with her cousins, her laughter ringing like a bell, but every time I glanced at her I felt a pinch of dread. It was my sister Elizabeth who first broke the calm. "You know, Mary, we all have our struggles, but some of us are just better at keeping them hidden." The words hung in the air, sharp and biting. I could see the smirk on her face, and I felt my heart race. "Is that so?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "Some of us don't hide things. Some of us just deal with them." The tension crackled. My family had always prided itself on being strong, resilient. But this felt like a betrayal. Elizabeth's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Oh, but Mary, you've been so distant lately. Maybe it's time to let us in on what's going on." Her words sliced through any semblance of unity, leaving a raw wound. I caught Sarah's gaze, searching for support, but she looked away, her face flushed with embarrassment. It was as if a chasm had opened between us, a space filled with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I felt my chest tighten. Why was it so hard for her to see my struggles? Then, in a moment that felt like slow motion, William, my eldest son, chimed in. "Mum, maybe you should just admit that you've been struggling. We all have problems." The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. "Struggling?" I echoed, my voice rising. "You think I'm struggling? You don't have a clue what I've been through." My heart pounded in my ears. How had we come to this? The faces around the table shifted, uncertainty clouding their features. And then, like a cold wave, shame washed over me. I wasn't just a mother. I was a fortress, built to protect my family from the storms of life. And here I was, feeling like I was falling apart. "Mary, we just want to understand," James, my husband, said softly. His tone was gentle, but it felt like a challenge. "You know we're here for you, right?" I wanted to scream, to tell them how much I needed them, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. "You don't understand," I whispered, my voice breaking. "I've been carrying this weight alone for so long." The room shifted again, and suddenly, I was the focal point of their attention. Their faces twisted with concern, but all I could see was judgment. My mind raced, thoughts colliding. "What's wrong, Mum?" Sarah finally asked, her voice small and tentative. "You can tell us." Could I? Would this moment shatter the fragile facade we had built? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I'm struggling with my health. I've been having symptoms, and I'm scared." The reaction was instantaneous, but not what I had expected. Elizabeth's face softened, the smirk gone, replaced by genuine concern. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked. "I didn't want to burden anyone," I replied, my shoulders heavy with the weight of unshared pain. I thought I could handle it, but as the words left my mouth, I felt something shift within me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my family, the bonds we shared, and the walls I had built. Suddenly, Sarah stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Mum, we're family. We can face anything together. You don't have to go through this alone." Her eyes were fierce, filled with a determination that stirred something deep within me. I looked around the room, the faces of my family illuminated by the soft glow of the overhead lights, and I felt the barriers begin to crumble. "But what if I'm not strong enough?" I whispered, vulnerability spilling into the air. "Strength isn't about carrying burdens in silence." John, my brother, spoke up. "It's about acknowledging them and letting others help." Their words were like a balm to my wounded heart. I had always thought that asking for help was a sign of weakness, but perhaps it was the first step towards healing. As the conversation swirled around me, I felt the warmth of hope begin to replace the cold fear that had settled in my chest. "I've been afraid," I admitted, my voice trembling. "Afraid of what might happen next." "Then let's face it together," William said, the weight of his sincerity wrapping around me like a comforting blanket. In that moment, I realized this was just the beginning. It wasn't just about my health, it was about our journey as a family. We would navigate these waters together, no matter how tumultuous. But just as the relief washed over me, I felt a sharp pang of uncertainty. What else had I hidden? What secrets lay buried beneath the surface, waiting to be unearthed? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. I had opened a door, but what lay on the other side? Little did I know the truth would shake us all to our cores. I never imagined I would find myself here, teetering on the edge of despair. The room felt suffocating, filled with secrets, shadows lurking in the corners. As I sat in silence, my heart raced, a storm of emotions brewing inside. The weight of hidden truths pressed down on me like a heavy quilt. "Look, I need to know," Sarah said, her voice steady but urgent. "What else are you hiding?" I felt my breath hitch. How could I tell them? What if the truth shattered everything? But as I glanced into their expectant faces, I felt a flicker of courage. Maybe it was time to lay it all bare. "There's something I've kept from you all," I started, each word feeling like a stone dropped into a still pond, rippling outwards. "It's about Dad." The room went quiet. William leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What about him?" I swallowed hard, the memories flooding back. "When he passed, I found something, a document it changes everything." "What do you mean?" John asked, his voice a mix of concern and curiosity. I took a deep breath, my hands trembling. "He set aside money for each of you, but there's more. I think he was involved in something dangerous." The revelation hung in the air, heavy and daunting. I watched as their faces morphed from confusion to shock. "You mean to say he was hiding something from us?" Sarah's voice quivered, a mix of betrayal and disbelief. "Yes," I whispered, "and I didn't know how to tell you. I was afraid it would change how you saw him." John shook his head, a flicker of anger igniting in his eyes. "We need to find out what he was involved in. This isn't just about money, it's our family's legacy." "Exactly," I said, feeling a surge of unity among us. "But it also means we need to confront some uncomfortable truths." William stood up, pacing the room, his thoughts racing. "What if he was caught up in something illicit? What does that mean for us? For the family name?" I felt a deep ache in my chest. "I don't know, but we can't ignore it. We owe it to him, and to ourselves." The conversation took a turn, each of us grappling with the implications of what this could mean. The shadows of doubt crept back in, but this time they felt less suffocating. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together," Sarah declared, her voice resolute. "We're stronger than any secret." Her words resonated, igniting a fire in my heart. We were a family, bound by love and resilience. We would pull through. But just as the storm inside me began to calm, a nagging thought took root. What if this revelation was only the tip of the iceberg? What if uncovering the truth led us down a path we couldn't return from? The question lingered, casting a shadow over the flicker of hope that had begun to grow. I felt as though we were standing on the precipice of something monumental, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were unprepared for the depths we might plunge into. And then, as if answering my unspoken fears, the phone rang, slicing through the tension like a knife. "Who could that be?" Susan asked, glancing at the screen. My heart raced again as I picked it up, the weight of uncertainty pressing down. The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, yet it sent a chill down my spine. "Mrs. Harper? Yes? I think you need to sit down. We need to talk about your father." In that moment, I realized we were about to step into a world of revelations that would transform everything. The truth was out there, waiting to be uncovered, and I was terrified of what we might find. I felt the weight of their gazes upon me, each one a tether, pulling me closer to the truth I had buried deep. What else have I hidden? The question echoed in my mind, relentless. As I looked into Sarah's fierce eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that the dam was about to break. "I don't know if I can say it all," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "There are so many things I've kept inside, so many fears." John leaned forward, his expression softened. "Mom, we're here for you. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. You don't have to carry this alone." I felt a rush of gratitude mixed with fear. Could I truly share everything? What if it shattered the fragile peace we had just begun to build? "Let's start with the hardest part," I said, my heart racing. "It's not just my health, it's everything. The stress, the sleepless nights, the worry about the future. I've felt so lost." William reached across the table, placing his hand over mine. "That's a heavy load to bear, but you're not meant to do it alone." I nodded, tears spilling onto my cheeks. "I've been afraid of being a burden, afraid of what you might think." "Don't be." Sarah's voice was strong, unwavering. "You're our mum. We want to help." Their support was like a lifeline, but I hesitated. What would they think when they heard the full truth? The thought of revealing my deepest struggles felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, peering into the abyss below, but I knew I had to leap. "There's been so much more," I continued, the words tumbling out in a rush. "The financial strain, the secrets I've kept. I made choices that affected all of you." John's brow furrowed. "What choices? What do you mean?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I've been keeping track of bills, of the debt piling up. I've hidden it from you all because I didn't want to worry you. I thought if I could manage it myself, it would be fine." "Why didn't you tell us?" William asked, bewildered. "Because I thought I could fix it. I thought I could make it better on my own. But it's only gotten worse." Silence filled the room, heavy and thick. I could see the gears turning in their minds. Each revelation seemed to chip away at the image I had tried so hard to maintain, that of a strong, unyielding mother who could handle anything. "Listen, Mum," Sarah said finally, her voice low. "You're human. We all have our struggles. We want to be here for you, but you have to let us in." I nodded, feeling the weight of their words settle in my heart. The shame I had carried for so long began to dissipate, replaced by a glimmer of hope. Perhaps this was the moment I had been waiting for a chance to rebuild, to regain my strength not just for myself, but for my family. As we sat together, a flurry of emotions coursed through me. I felt both terrified and liberated. Yes, the road ahead would be challenging, but I knew we would face it together. "Okay," I said softly, my voice trembling with resolve. "Let's face it. All of it." But just as I began to feel a flicker of optimism, my phone buzzed on the table, piercing through the heavy atmosphere. I glanced down, my heart racing as I read the message. It was from an unknown number, an ominous reminder of the secrets I had tried to bury. The message read, "I know what you've done. It's time for the truth to come out." My breath caught in my throat. What did they know? Who was this person? And what would it mean for my family? The walls I had begun to break down felt like they were closing in again. Panic surged within me. What had I unleashed? "Who is it, Mum?" John asked, sensing my distress. It's nothing," I stammered, trying to regain my composure. But deep down, I knew it was far from nothing. In that moment, I realized the journey ahead would be far more complicated than I had ever anticipated. The truth I had begun to reveal was only the surface. What lay beneath was a tempest waiting to be unleashed. And as I stared at the screen, dread creeping in, I knew one thing. We were about to face a storm that would test the very fabric of our family. I grasped the edge of the table, my heart racing, as I stared at the letter in my trembling hands. The faded ink seemed to pulse with secrets. "I found this," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. The room fell silent, every set of eyes fixed on me, waiting for the revelation that felt like a storm brewing inside. "What is it?" Sarah leaned forward, her brow furrowed with concern. It's from Dad," I stuttered, my throat tightening. The words felt heavy, like stones thrown into a still pond, disturbing the surface of our fragile peace. I opened the letter, the scent of aged paper wafting up, bringing back a flood of memories, laughter, family dinners, the warmth of his embrace. "Read it," John urged, his voice steady. I took a deep breath, unfolding the paper with care. "It's about his will. He left something for us." My hands shook, each word a shiver of uncertainty. "But it's not just the house or money. It's something more." "What do you mean?" William asked, his eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made my heart race. "It says here he wanted us to come together, to find something he hid, something that holds our family's history." My brow furrowed as I continued reading. "He believed that facing our past would heal our wounds." The air grew thick with tension. My family had always been good at hiding pain, disappointment, resentment. But now, it seemed, we were being called to confront it all. "Are you sure it's not just another empty promise?" Jennifer, my sister, crossed her arms, skepticism etched on her face. "No," I replied firmly, feeling a surge of determination. "This is real. He wouldn't have written it otherwise." William reached out, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together, like we said before." But as the words left his mouth, a flicker of doubt brushed past me. What if uncovering our history unearthed more than we were ready to handle? What if these hidden truths were too painful, too raw to confront? "Let's not jump to conclusions," John interjected, his voice calm and steady. "We need to know what we're dealing with. If Dad believed this was important, we owe it to him to find out." Even as he spoke, I felt a heaviness settle in my chest. I had spent so long avoiding the truth, walling off my emotions. Did I truly want to open Pandora's box? "Where do we even start?" Elizabeth asked, her voice barely above a murmur. I looked around the room, the faces of my family reflecting a mixture of fear and hope. "The letter mentions a place," I said, my voice gaining strength. "It talks about a family heirloom hidden in the old oak tree in the garden. We need to go there." The thought of that tree standing tall and proud, full of memories, sent a shiver down my spine. It had always been a symbol of our family, a witness to our joys and sorrows. "Then let's go," Sarah said, her voice firm, determination lighting up her eyes. As we gathered our coats, I felt a strange sense of unity. For too long, we had let silence define us. Now, we were stepping out into the light, ready to dig up the roots of our shared history. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. But as we stepped outside, a sudden gust of wind whipped through the yard, rustling the leaves as if they were warning us. My heart skipped a beat. What if we uncovered something that shattered our family? "Stay strong," I whispered to myself, the words echoing in my mind as we approached the ancient tree. "We can pull through this." As we reached the oak, the branches swayed gently, almost beckoning us closer. I knelt down, brushing away the leaves that had gathered at its base. My fingers grazed the rough bark, and I felt a pulse of energy, as if the tree was sharing its wisdom. "Here," I said, pointing to a small hollow at the base. With trembling hands I reached inside, pulling out a weathered wooden box. The air felt charged with anticipation, each of us holding our breath as I opened it. Inside lay a collection of photographs, letters, and trinkets, all carefully preserved. But one item caught my eye, a small locket, intricately designed, holding a faded picture of my parents on their wedding day. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. This was his way of reminding us," I said, my voice thick with emotion, reminding us of who we are, where we came from. But as I sifted through the contents, a slip of paper fluttered to the ground. When I picked it up, my heart dropped. It was a note, scrawled in my father's handwriting, but the words made my stomach twist. "Forgive me. I hid the truth to protect you." The weight of those words hung in the air, heavy with implications. What truth had he been hiding? And why? Suddenly, everything felt different. The urge to dig deeper surged within me, but so did a sense of dread. What had my father kept from us? "Find your strength," I muttered under my breath, trying to quell the rising tide of fear. But as I looked into my family's eyes, I knew we were on the brink of uncovering something monumental. "Let's keep going," I said, a new resolve coursing through me. "We owe it to Dad. We owe it to ourselves." As we stood together, ready to face whatever lay ahead, I couldn't shake the feeling that the truth was just the beginning. But what I didn't know was that the revelations waiting for us would shake the very foundation of our family to its core. I felt the tension thicken in the air, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Sarah's fierce determination was palpable, but I could also feel the unease ripple through my family. They wanted to support me, to help me face the demons I had kept hidden for far too long. But there was more to this story, more than just my struggles with health and uncertainty. "Let's call a family meeting," Jennifer suggested, her voice steady. "We need to talk about everything together." I nodded, feeling a mix of gratitude and dread. The prospect of laying everything bare was both terrifying and liberating. Secrets had a way of festering in silence, but perhaps it was time to air them out, to let the light in. As we gathered around the dining table, I could see the concern etched on their faces. It was a familiar setting, one that had been filled with laughter and warmth, but now it felt heavy with unspoken words. The table, once a symbol of unity, now served as a battleground for our emotions. "First, let's talk about what you've been going through, Mom," Michael said gently, his eyes searching mine for reassurance. "We need to understand what you're feeling." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of their gazes upon me. "I've been struggling with my health," I started, each word a step into the unknown. "But it's not just that. It's the fear of losing control, of being a burden." "None of us see you as a burden," Sarah interjected, her voice firm. "You're our mom. We want to help you, not just carry the load." Their words wrapped around me like a warm embrace. I could feel the cracks in my heart begin to mend, but there were still shadows lurking in the corners of my mind. "I've kept things from you," I confessed. "Things that I thought would protect you." William leaned forward, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean? What else is there?" The question hung in the air, heavy with expectation. I hesitated, battling with the fear of what I was about to reveal. "There are financial issues, bills piling up. I've not been honest about how dire things have become." Gasps filled the room. They hadn't expected this. "Why didn't you tell us?" Jennifer's voice wavered with hurt. "We could have helped." "I thought I could manage it," I replied, my heart racing. "I didn't want to burden you with my problems." "That's not how family works," Michael said, a hint of frustration creeping into his tone. "We face things together. You taught us that." I felt a wave of emotion crash over me. I thought by shielding you, I was protecting you. But now I see I was only isolating myself. Sarah reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "Mum, we're here for you, always, but you need to let us in." I looked around the table, seeing the love and concern in their eyes. "I'm scared," I admitted, my voice cracking. "I don't know how to pull through this. I've been holding on for so long and I'm tired." "Then let us help you carry it," John said, his voice a steady anchor. "You've carried us for years. It's time we return the favor." Their words ignited a flicker of hope within me. Perhaps I didn't have to face this alone. But just as I began to feel the warmth of their support, the uncertainty gnawed at me again. What other burdens had I been hiding? What else had I kept locked away? The room fell silent, the weight of that question pressing down on us all. I knew I had to dig deeper, to face those shadows that had haunted me for too long. "There's more," I whispered, heart racing. "And I don't know how you'll take it." But before I could elaborate, the doorbell rang. The sound echoed through the house, slicing through our fragile moment. "Who could that be?" Jennifer asked, glancing towards the hallway. "Let me check," I said, not. entirely certain if I wanted to face anyone else right now. I stepped toward the door, my heart pounding in my chest. As I opened it, the sight before me sent a jolt through my body. There stood a figure from my past, a shadow I thought had disappeared long ago. "Surprise," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. Little did I know this unexpected arrival would force us to confront not only my buried secrets, but the very foundations of our family's bond. I stood frozen at the door, staring at the figure from my past, Robert. The name felt heavy, like a stone sinking in my gut. Memories flooded back, some sweet, some bitter. He was the one who had walked away, leaving a gaping hole in our family fabric. "Surprise!" he said again, his smirk widening. The room behind me buzzed with tension. I could feel Michael's hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "I heard you could use a friend," he replied, stepping inside without invitation. My heart raced. This was not the time or place for old ghosts. "Friend?" Jennifer's voice cut through the air, sharp with disbelief. "You've got some nerve showing up after all this time." "I know I haven't been around," Robert replied, feigning innocence. "But I think we need to talk, especially now." The words hung in the air, thick with unspoken tension. I glanced at my children, their expressions a mix of confusion and concern. "We were just having a family moment," I said, trying to shut down the conversation. "Family?" Robert scoffed. "Is that what you call this? You've been living a lie, Mary. You think they know everything?" I felt a burning heat rise within me. "Enough!" I shouted, surprising even myself. "You don't get to come in here and dictate how we define our family." He raised his hands in mock surrender, but I could see the glint of challenge in his eyes. "I'm just saying, you've kept secrets. Secrets that could change everything." "Like what?" Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady, filled with the strength of her convictions. "What do you know that we don't?" Robert looked at her, his expression shifting. "More than you realize. Your mother has been protecting you. From the truth." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "You don't know anything about us," I said, my gaze fierce. "This is our family. We support each other." "Is that what you call it?" he challenged. "Because it looks to me like you're all just living in denial." The room crackled with tension, the air thick as we all stood, caught in this unexpected confrontation. I felt my stomach knot, unsure of where this was going. "Why now?" I asked, my voice softer but still firm. "Why show up after all these years?" "Because," he said, his tone shifting to something more serious, "I can help you, if you let me." A wave of uncertainty washed over me. Help? From him? My instincts screamed to push him away, to tell him to leave, but the flicker of hope in his voice stirred something within me. "Help with what, exactly?" John asked, crossing his arms. "What do you think you can offer that we can't?" "I know things," he said, leaning in as if sharing a secret. "Things about your father's past, about the family's finances. There's a lot you don't know." The words felt like shards of glass, cutting through the fragile peace we had just begun to build. I glanced at my children, the uncertainty mirrored in their eyes. "Why should we trust you?" Sarah's voice wavered, her vulnerability laid bare. "You left us when we needed you the most." "I was young," he replied, a hint of regret in his tone. "But I've changed. I've been through my own battles." "Battles?" I echoed, feeling the weight of his words. "You think you understand struggle? You walked away from your own family." The silence that followed was deafening. Robert shifted, discomfort flickering across his face. "I know I made mistakes, but I'm here now. I want to make things right." "Make things right?" I scoffed, disbelief flooding my voice. "You think you can just waltz back in and fix everything?" "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, his tone earnest, "but I want to help you through whatever it is you're facing. We can overcome this, together." The irony of his words stung. Together? That's what I had tried to do for years. I had kept my family together through struggles, shielding them from the worst. And yet, here he was, a specter from my past, offering support in a way that felt both foreign and familiar. "Mom," Michael said softly, breaking through my swirling thoughts. "What do you think? Do you want to hear him out?" I looked into my children's eyes, searching for strength. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice trembling. "There's so much I've kept hidden. I don't know if I can face it all. Maybe you don't have to face it alone, John suggested gently. Maybe we can navigate this together. The warmth of their support enveloped me, a comforting embrace in the midst of chaos. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle in my chest. Fine, I said, turning back to Robert with resolve. You want to talk? Let's talk. But know this if you're lying. I'm not, he interrupted, sincerity etched on his face. I want to help you, I promise. But as I looked at him, doubt lingered. Just how much of the past was he willing to reveal? And was I prepared for the truth? The answer felt like a tightrope walk between hope and fear. Hang in there, Mum, Michael said, squeezing my hand. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. And just like that, I realized that perhaps the greatest challenge wasn't just about confronting my past, it was about embracing the present and the love that surrounded me. But as I steeled myself to listen, the question lingered what other secrets lay buried, waiting to be unearthed. I stood frozen at the door, heart pounding, as the figure from my past took a step closer. Mark, my ex-husband. The man I thought I'd left behind, buried under years of hurt and betrayal. What are you doing here? I managed to choke out, my voice trembling. Surprise, love, he said, that infuriating smirk still plastered on his face. Thought I'd drop by and see how you're doing. Why now? I asked, feeling the warmth of my family's support recede like a tide. I glanced back at the table where my children sat, worry etched on their faces. They had just begun to understand the depth of my struggles. Now, this man threatened to unravel it all. Because I've missed you, and I want to make things right, he said, stepping fully into the light. His presence was a shadow over our reunion, a storm threatening to break our fragile peace. Make things right? I echoed, disbelief lacing my words. You walked out. You left us. I've moved on, Mark. We all have. Have you really? He took another step forward, his gaze piercing. You think you can just erase the past like it never happened? That it doesn't still linger? My breath caught. His words cut deep, reminding me of all the pain I had hidden away, all the nights I'd spent crying alone. What do you really want? I asked, anger and fear mixing in my chest. I want my family back, he said, his voice softening, trying to reach a part of me that had long since faded. I want us to heal, to start anew. Start anew? I laughed bitterly. You think it's that simple? After everything? Behind me, I could feel Sarah's hand tighten around mine. She was my rock, my reminder of what truly mattered. Mum, we're here for you. Don't let him pull you back. Mark rolled his eyes, dismissing her. This isn't about her, Susan. This is between us. Don't you dare speak to my daughter like that, I snapped, feeling the fire ignite within me. She's my strength. I won't let you manipulate me again. Manipulate? His voice raised, the facade slipping. I'm just trying to reconnect. You can't keep pushing me away forever. You don't get to dictate how I feel, I said, my heart racing. You lost that right when you walked out the door. Maybe I was wrong, he said, desperation creeping into his tone. I've changed. I've realized what I lost. Change doesn't erase the past, I replied, standing taller. I've fought hard to rebuild my life. I won't let you destroy that. The tension in the room thickened. My children were watching, their faces a mix of concern and defiance. I felt the weight of their love, the bond we had forged through adversity. We're stronger together, I reminded them silently. Mark took a deep breath, a flicker of vulnerability passing through his eyes. What if I told you I'm here to stay? That I want to support you? Support me? I shook my head. You don't even know what I'm going through. You think you can just waltz back in and play the role of the caring husband? I'm not asking for forgiveness right now, he said, his voice dropping. I just want a chance to prove it. Prove it? I repeated, disbelief flooding my senses. You think it's that easy? You think I can just forget the years of heartache? Maybe we can work through it, he said, desperation rising in his voice. You can't deny that we had something good once. Good? I laughed again, but this time it was bitter. You mean before you betrayed me? Before you shattered our family? People can change, he insisted, stepping closer. I've changed. Mark, I've spent years healing, I replied, my voice steady but my heart racing. I won't let you undo that. Not now, not ever. But as I spoke, I felt a flicker of doubt. Could he really have changed? Would it be possible to forgive him? To let him back into our lives? The shadows of my past loomed large, and I wasn't sure I was ready to face them. "Let's just talk," he pleaded, his voice softer now. "Just give me a chance." "Talk?" I echoed, the word tasting bitter on my tongue. "What more is there to say? You left. You made your choice." His eyes softened, and for a moment I saw a glimmer of the man I once loved. "I know I messed up, but I want to make it right. For us. For the kids." "Kids?" I shot back. "You think you can just stroll back into their lives? After all those years?" "I want to be their father again," he said, his voice breaking. "I miss them. I miss you." My heart twisted painfully. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think that redemption was possible. But the scars ran deep, and the road to healing was long. Just then, Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady. "Mum, we're behind you no matter what you decide. But you have to protect yourself and us. You've fought hard for this family." "Don't let him back in without thinking it through," John added, his expression serious. "We're your family, and we stand together." I looked at my children, their faces filled with love and support. I felt a rush of gratitude for their strength. They were my anchor in this storm. "I need time to think," I finally said, my voice resolute. "You can't just waltz back into my life. It's not that simple." "Time?" Mark echoed, his face falling. "I don't want to lose you again." "Then prove it," I said, feeling a flicker of defiance. "Show me that you've changed. But know this, I won't be the same woman you left behind." With that, I closed the door, the weight of the moment settling heavily on my shoulders. I turned back to my family, their faces filled with concern and love. "What have I done?" I whispered, feeling the echoes of uncertainty wash over me. But deep down, I felt a spark of strength. I was no longer a victim of my past. I had the power to choose my future. And with my family by my side, I could face whatever came next. But as I looked back at the door, something nagged at the back of my mind. Was this really the end of my story with Mark? Or was it just the beginning of a new chapter, fraught with challenges I had yet to face? I stood frozen at the door, staring at the face I had hoped never to see again. David, my heart sank. The memories rushed back, like a tide pulling me under. "What are you doing here?" I managed to utter, my voice barely above a whisper. "Came to check on old times," he replied, that smug smirk still plastered across his face. "Thought you might want to hear what I've been up to." "Maybe I don't," I snapped, instinctively stepping back as if to close the door on the past. But he slipped inside before I could react. The moment he entered, the atmosphere changed. It was like a storm cloud rolling in, darkening the light that had just begun to warm our family gathering. Michael, Sarah, John, and Jennifer were still seated around the table, their eyes wide with a mix of confusion and concern. "Mum, who is this?" Jennifer asked, her voice steady but edged with tension. "An old acquaintance," I replied, trying to keep my composure. "A very old acquaintance." David chuckled, taking in the scene. "So, this is your family, huh? Nice little setup you've got here. Must be nice to pretend everything's perfect." I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. "You don't get to judge us, David. You don't know anything about what we've built. Built or hidden," he shot. Back, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You've always been good at that. Hiding." The words hit me like a physical blow. I could feel my family's eyes on me, searching for answers. "That's enough," I said, a tremor in my voice. "You need to leave." "Not before I remind you of a few things," he said, stepping closer, invading my space. "You think they know the truth? The real truth?" "Get out!" I shouted, the fear coursing through me, rising to a boiling point. But David just laughed, a chilling sound that echoed in my mind. "You can't run from the past, Mary. It's not that easy. It's going to catch up with you. I promise." Michael stood up, his presence tall and protective. "I think it's time you leave, mate. You're not welcome here." David turned to my son, his eyes narrowing. "You think you can protect her? You don't even know what she's capable of, or what she's hiding." "Enough!" I cried, a mix of anger and desperation spilling out of me. "You don't know anything about me anymore." David's expression shifted, a flicker of something darker crossing his face. Oh, but I do. You're still that same scared girl, hiding behind a mask of strength. It won't last. It never does. The room was silent, the air thick with tension. I could see the worry etched on my family's faces. They didn't understand the depth of this man's words. They didn't know the history that haunted me. "Let's go," I said shakily, turning to my family, hoping to shield them from the storm brewing within me. But David wasn't finished. "Do you really think they'll stand by you when they find out?" he taunted, his voice low and insidious. "When they learn the truth about who you really are." I felt my heart race, panic creeping in. "Get out!" I screamed again, and this time Michael stepped forward, ready to confront him. "Leave my mother alone!" he demanded, fists clenched. And at his sides. "You don't have any right to speak to her like that." David smirked, relishing the chaos he was creating. "Oh, but I do. And soon, they'll all know." "You think you can keep your secrets hidden forever? That's the thing about secrets, Mary. They have a way of surfacing." With that, he turned and left, the door slamming shut behind him. I staggered back, the weight of his words crashing down on me. My family rushed to my side, their concern palpable. "Mom, are you okay?" Sarah asked, her voice filled with worry. I don't know," I replied, feeling the cracks in my armor widen. "I thought I had buried that part of my life." Michael placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "We're here for you. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. You taught us that." But the fear hung in the air like a thick fog. I had spent so long trying to protect them from my past, and now it was threatening to unravel everything. "Maybe it's time to face it," I whispered, a newfound determination rising within me. "Maybe it's time for the truth to come out." But as I met my family's eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that the storm was far from over. What other secrets lay buried? What would David expose next? And just as those questions began to form, my phone buzzed on the table. A message. I picked it up, heart pounding. It was from an unknown number. "I know the truth. Meet me tomorrow. You need to hear it." A chill ran down my spine. I had no idea what awaited me, but I knew one thing. I had to find the strength to confront it. Because whatever lay ahead, I wouldn't face it alone. I stood frozen at the door, my breath hitching in my throat. The figure before me was all too familiar, a man I had hoped to never see again. His presence sent a shiver down my spine, a haunting echo of my past. "What are you doing here?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. "Surprise," he replied, that infuriating smirk still plastered across his face. I could feel my heart pounding, each beat a reminder of the pain he had caused. This wasn't just a visit. It was a storm brewing on the horizon. Behind me, I could sense my family's unease. Michael's protective stance, Sarah's wide eyes, and John's clenched fists spoke volumes. "Mum, who is this?" Sarah asked, stepping closer, her voice steady but laced with concern. I swallowed hard, struggling to gather my thoughts. "He's someone from my past, someone I thought was long gone." The words felt heavy, like stones weighing down my heart. "Maybe it's time to unpack that baggage," Michael said, his tone firm yet gentle. "You've been carrying it for too long." The man at the door stepped forward, a calculated confidence radiating from him. "I came to talk. We need to clear the air." His words dripped with false sincerity. I felt a surge of anger rise within me. How dare he waltz back into my life after everything? "Talk?" I scoffed. "You don't get to decide that. Not anymore." "Let's not pretend this isn't important," he pressed, his eyes narrowing. "There are things that need to be said, for all our sakes." The tension thickened in the air, and I could feel my family's concern coiling around us like a tightening noose. "Mom, you don't have to do this alone," John said, stepping forward, a calming presence. "We'll stand by you." I turned to my children, their unwavering support a balm for my frayed nerves. "I appreciate that, but this is something I need to handle. It's my past." "Your past affects us too," Sarah interjected, her voice steady. "We're a family. We face everything together, remember?" Their words struck a chord within me. I had always insisted on the importance of unity, yet here I was, wanting to shield them from the truth. The truth that had haunted me for years. "Fine," I said, my voice trembling as I relented. "Let's talk. But know this, there are things I won't allow you to manipulate anymore." As I stepped back and invited him in, a wave of dread washed over me. I could feel the weight of my family's eyes on me, their silent support a reminder that I wasn't alone. And yet, the past loomed large, casting shadows over this fragile moment. We gathered around the table, the atmosphere thick with unspoken words. I could see the flicker of concern in Michael's eyes, the tension etched on John's face. "You said we're family," I began, my voice steadying. "But family doesn't abandon one another." He chuckled, a hollow sound that echoed through the room. "You think I chose to leave? There were circumstances." "Circumstances?" I shot back, my heart racing. "You walked away when we needed you most. I had to be both mother and father, and you left me holding the bag." "I did what I thought was best," he countered, his tone defensive. "Best for who?" I challenged, feeling the anger welling up within me. "Not for me. Not for our family." The room was silent, the tension palpable. My children watched, their expressions a mix of concern and determination. I could feel the strength radiating from them, reminding me that I wasn't fighting this battle alone. "Enough of this," I said, forcing myself to maintain composure. "If we're going to talk, let's lay everything bare. No more lies." The man shifted, the smug confidence wavering just slightly. "Fine. Let's start with the truth then." As we began to unravel the tangled web of our shared history, I felt a surge of adrenaline. This was the moment I had feared for so long, yet here I was ready to confront it. With every word exchanged, I could feel the layers peeling away. The hurt, the anger, the betrayal, it all spilled out like a river breaking free from a dam. But just as I thought we were making progress, he leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You don't know the full story. There are things I've kept hidden that could change everything." My heart raced at the implication. What could be worse than what he had already put me through? "What do you mean?" I demanded. My voice edged with urgency. He hesitated, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his features. "You need to hear me out. There's more at stake here than you realize." But before he could continue, the door swung open again. This time it was Jennifer, her face pale, breathless. "Mom, you need to see this." The urgency in her tone sent a chill down my spine. I turned to my family, their eyes wide with concern. Whatever Jennifer had to say, it was serious. As she stepped into the room, I could see the weight of the moment pressing down on us. "What is it?" I asked, my heart racing. "It's about him," she said, pointing a shaky finger at the man in front of me. "I think you need to know the truth." And just like that, the ground shifted beneath me once more. I could feel the walls closing in, the past colliding with the present, each moment spiraling into uncertainty. Whatever revelation lay ahead, I knew it would change everything. I could feel the heavy burden of truth looming closer, and with it, the hope of finally finding my freedom. I felt the world tilt again, the room spinning with Jennifer's words hanging heavily in the air. "What do you mean?" I pressed, the urgency in my voice echoing my racing heart. Jennifer took a deep breath, her hands trembling slightly. "I found something. A letter." She glanced at the man, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and determination. "It's from Dad." The mention of my late husband sent a jolt through me. My mind raced back to the peaceful days, the laughter that filled our home. But those memories were tainted now, shadows lurking in every corner. "What does it say?" I asked, trying to steady my breath. Jennifer stepped closer, holding a crumpled envelope tightly in her grip. "He wrote about a family secret, something he kept from everyone." The man shifted again, the smug confidence evaporating. "You shouldn't be bringing that up," he said, his voice tight. "Why not?" Jennifer shot back. "It's about time we know the truth." I could see the tension rising, the anger sparking between them like a live wire. "Let her speak," I said firmly. "What does the letter say?" With a deep breath, Jennifer unfolded it slowly, the paper crinkling loudly in the silence. "It says our family has a history, a legacy meant to be passed down, but it's linked to betrayal, to—" She hesitated, looking at me. "To him." The words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. I felt the ground beneath me shift again. "What kind of betrayal?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. Jennifer read on, her voice steady despite the words. "It says there was a hidden fortune, A property in the countryside, but it was taken, stolen by someone close. Her eyes locked onto mine. Mum, it's about him, isn't it? I felt the world close in, a storm of emotions swirling inside me. Betrayal, anger, and a flicker of hope all wrestled for dominance. You think he had something to do with this? I said, pointing at the man, my voice shaking. He scoffed, but I saw the slight tremor in his hands. You don't know what you're talking about. Do I? I challenged, stepping closer. I've lived in the dark long enough. If there's a hidden fortune, I deserve to know the truth. And if you're behind this, I won't let you get away with it. Jennifer's gaze shifted to me, a mix of admiration and fear. Mum, we can find it. Together. We can uncover everything. Together, I echoed, the word resonating in my chest. I thought of my family, the love we had built despite the chaos. We can pull through. We just need to stay strong. The man's expression faltered as he realized the tide was turning. You think you can take me on? You're nothing without me, he shot back, his bravado cracking. No, I said firmly, holding Jennifer's hand. We're everything together. You underestimated our strength. You thought we'd break apart, but we're united. If there's a legacy, it belongs to us. Jennifer squeezed my hand, her eyes shining with determination. We'll find the truth. We'll make this right. The man's face twisted in anger, but I could see the fear lurking beneath. The walls he built around himself were crumbling. You have no idea what you're getting into, he warned, but there was less certainty in his voice now. Maybe not, I replied, but I know that I'm not afraid anymore. I have my family by my side, and that's all I need. With renewed courage, I turned to Jennifer. Let's do this. Let's find our truth and reclaim what's ours. We stood together, resolute, ready to face whatever came next. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, the wind whipping around us, but I wouldn't look back. We were ready for the leap. The man's eyes were dark, but I could see the flicker of doubt. You won't win, he spat, but his words were weak, lacking the conviction they once held. With a deep breath, I opened my heart, letting faith guide me. We will, I said, my voice steady. This is our moment, and nothing can take it away. As we looked at each other, I felt a warmth spreading within me, a sense of hope. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I knew we would overcome. After all, this was our story, and we would write it together. Whatever lay ahead, we would face it united. It was time to reclaim our legacy, to unearth the truth buried in shadows. With faith and strength, we would rise. And as I glanced back at the man, I realized this was just the beginning of our journey. The truth would out, and with it, our redemption. I could feel the changes coming, the winds of hope stirring around us. Let the truth be known, I whispered, and I knew, deep down, that the battle was ours to win.